There's been a lot of talk about Ilya Sorokin and whether he's been good enough this year for the New York Islanders. We will break down the debate, all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show. We will weigh in on the Ilya Sorokin debate. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, or maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So I wanted to start today's show off talking a little bit about Ilya Sorokin. And look, I am not going to sit here and tell you that Ilya Sorokin has been as good as he was a year ago. Not even close. Last year, he was a finalist for the Vezina Trophy, actually finished second in the voting. He had a 2.34 goals against average and a 924 save percentage, 6 shutouts. The save percentage was right about where it was, 924 last year, the year before, 925. The goals against average, 234 last year, the year before, 2.40. All of these were very Ilya Sorokin-like numbers. This year, the numbers are not as good. Not only is the one-loss record not as good, but the goals against average has gone up by almost 3/4 of a goal, 3.03. And the save percentage has gone down to 9.08, which is the lowest of Ilya Sorokin's NHL career. And even, taking this year into consideration, his career save percentage is still a 919, and his career goals against average 2.53. So clearly, statistically, Ilya Sorokin is not having as good a year as he did any of his first 3 NHL seasons. And look, he has let in some soft goals. I think there's no question about that. If you go back to the game against Carolina on Tuesday night, that first goal, definitely one he would want to have back. But again, I hesitate at this point to truly say that Ilya Sorokin is the main reason for this team's current struggles and struggles throughout the season. The Islanders are allowing, and this was even more true under Lane Lambert, whose defensive system was a lot different than the one they're playing right now under under Patrick Waugh, But the Islanders were giving up 35, 40, 45 shots a game, and too many of them were of the high danger variety. So Ilya Sorokin getting peppered with too many shots, not playing not being able to catch his breath, having to deal with the puck being in the Islanders zone for many minutes at a time, and just having difficulty with that situation. So, yes, he's not making some saves that a year ago he most likely would have made. But I think part of it is exhaustion. Part of it is a lack of support. I think the team defensively has not played as well in front of him. And, you know, every player in the National Hockey League has years where they struggle a little bit more than they did in other years. And this year, more often than not, we have not seen grade A elite Ilya Sorokin. That being said, grade B or, average or below, even the off, quote unquote, Ilya Sorokin is still a player that most other teams in the NHL would jump at and say, we want this guy to be our starting goalie. So, has Ilya Sorokin been as good this season as he was last season? Absolutely not. I don't think you can debate that. Has that downturn in his play contributed to the Islanders' struggles and inconsistency this year? Yes, I think it has. But is it the biggest reason that this team is right now on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoffs? No, it's not. And I'll take it a step further. Without Ilya Sorokin, without the good to great goaltender that he is under normal circumstances, the Islanders would be battling the Columbus Blue Jackets right now for last place in the Metropolitan Division and in the Eastern Conference. And they would be, fighting for a lottery spot on, maybe even the number one pick in the draft. Because this team's other flaws, their age, their lack of speed, their lack of scoring depth, all of those, to me, are partially responsible for the fact that Ilya Sorokin is not having as good a year, and partially responsible for, and more responsible than Sorokin, for the team's overall struggles. The Lou Lamoriello system, and, we can debate from now until next week whether or not that system is still as workable in the modern NHL as it was in the 90s and 2000s and what have you. Whatever you want to do with that, put it aside. But the Lou Lamoriello system is built from the goal out. Martin Brodeur in New Jersey is the prime example of that. You get an elite goalie, you sign him long term, and you build your team around that foundation, that cornerstone of your team. That's what Lou Lamoriello does, and Ilya Sorokin is his guy. And I think when you break it all down, the fact that Sorokin is not playing his best hockey, that he does not have his A game right now, makes it even harder for this flawed team to overcome its flaws. Part of the system, the way it's set up, and we saw this when the Islanders went on their long playoff runs in 2020 and 2021. Part of it is that even though you're outplayed, even though you're outshot, even though you may not have as much speed or as skill as the other team, you're going to be in games because your goalie stands on his head and keeps you in them. We're not seeing as much of that this year from Ilya Sorokin, and as a result, the Islanders' inconsistency is magnified because they can't rely on Sorokin game in and game out, or Varlamov game in and game out, to bail them out when they don't have their A game. So Is Ilya Sorokin the biggest reason for the Islanders' struggles this year? No. Is he a contributing factor to those struggles? Absolutely. Has this season changed my view that Ilya Sorokin is one of the goalies, one of the top 10 goalies in this league, probably one of the top 5 goalies in this league, and a goalie you can build your team around for the foreseeable future? No, it hasn't changed it. You get a slightly better team, or maybe if Patrick Waugh's system was implemented at the beginning of this year, maybe Sorokin is doing better. So to me, Sorokin, his struggles, part of the problem, not the biggest part of the problem. And my view of him over the long haul has not changed much at all. All right, we have got a lot more to discuss. We'll talk about a former draft pick, rather, who played in college, who the Islanders have now signed. We'll also talk about this team's lack of heart and confidence. And oh, yeah, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a defenseman who spent one season with the Isles in the mid to late 2000s. We'll see if you can guess who that is. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets for your next big event. Well, Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and you get their best price guarantee, so Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite feature on Game Time, you go on the app and you can see the view from your seat before you buy the tickets, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. And Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, or even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Briefly, before we get on to our next topic, wanted to discuss a move that the Islanders made, and it's a positive for this team. The Islanders announced that they have signed draft pick Alex Jefferies to an entry-level deal. Now, Jefferies signing an ELC, that's an entry-level contract with the Islanders for 2024-2025. That's next year. But as of right now, he's going to finish this season on a tryout contract with Bridgeport. So, if he plays well with Bridgeport, this could be the first year of his ELC. But at the very least, he will get a few games with Bridgeport before they have to decide whether or not the ATO becomes an actual deal. Now, the good thing about Jefferies, he is a forward. He has spent the last 4 seasons at Merrimack College in the Hockey East Conference. Last year was his best year. He scored 14 goals and 41 points in 38 games. This year, injuries limited him a bit. 13 goals and 23 points in just 22 games. He was originally drafted by the Islanders in the 4th round back in 2020, 6 foot, 195 pounds. But the best thing that Jefferies brings to the table, he's 22 years old, and he has speed and vision. And boy, those are 2 things that this team could really, really use. He is more of a passer than a shooter, although he does have 5 games with 2 goals or more in his career. And look, basically, he has been called by Mike McMahon, who essentially does college hockey news. He called Jefferies basically he called him the most NHL ready player he's covered in 17 years of covering Merrimack. He has good size, skill, great skater, and he's strong. That is a quote from McMahon. So we will see what he's able to do. He will certainly be an asset for Bridgeport for the rest of this year. And basically, he will have a chance to show what he can do for the Islanders in training camp next year. I did want to address one other thing, and that is, to me, a big concern. And I've touched on it before. Everydayers know I've alluded to it several times, but I wanted to really delve into it a little bit. And that is the lack of emotion, the lack of urgency that I'm seeing from this team. I can understand the game Tuesday night. Okay, the Islanders lost to the Carolina Hurricanes. All good. Carolina's a better team. Carolina is more skilled, faster, deeper, better coached, even, I would say, even with Patrick Waugh being potentially an upgrade over Lane Lambert. But the Islanders, again last night, and we've seen it too many times, they just don't seem to be ready to play with enough emotion and heart. Look, this is a veteran team. This is a team that so many of these guys have been through the wars, that they have been, even with the Islanders, a lot of them. I mean, Matthew Barzal, Kyle Palmieri, Anders Lee, Pelech, Polak, all Semyon Varlamov, all these guys have been through the wars with this team, have gone on long playoff runs. Cizikas, Martin, Clutterbuck, they've all Pajot, all been here enough and have played in enough big games to know what's at stake, that they shouldn't need reminding, hey, we're fighting for a playoff spot. And again, I can handle the loss to the Hurricanes, but I can't handle the lack of urgency, the lack of, like, here's an example even. And by this point, it was later in the game. Islanders are losing 3-0. They were terrible in the second period for the first 14 minutes or so. They got better late in the second period, but they're down 3-0. Early in the third, Kyle Palmieri scores a goal for the Islanders. Now, for most teams, you're down 3-0. You get an early goal. You make it a 2-goal game with 14, 15 minutes left in regulation. You're in front of your home crowd. Most teams would get a jump from that goal. The Islanders, flat. No jump. No pick me up. They weren't skating faster and with more enthusiasm and doing better. And the crowd did not react perceivably. I guess this team has seen too much happen. They just don't seem to have the confidence and the jump and the emotion that you need to see from a team in the midst of the playoff hunt. And whether it's because so many of these guys have long-term contracts, or maybe they're physically tired this late in the season, or maybe they just don't believe in themselves anymore after all the inconsistency we've seen this season, it is just unacceptable to me as a fan. Like, if Lou Lamoriello says, I believe in this core, and while Lou Lamoriello doesn't hold a lot of press conferences, every time he's had a press conference, going back to get away, his press conference, what was it, June 1st, then before the draft, then training camp, and, what the all-star announcement and the coaching change, whenever Lou Lamoriello addressed the media. He was always saying, I believe in this core. This core doesn't seem to believe right now in themselves. And after that wonderful 6-game winning streak, they come back down to earth and give it all back by losing 5 in a row, 0-4-1 in their last 5. But the one thing that they've had too often this season is that lack of confidence, that lack of jump, that lack of eagerness and hunger and belief that if we work hard, we're going to get back into this game. I wanted to see that Tuesday night in the third period. Kyle Palmieri scores. That team should have been up, and it wasn't. And these guys should know better. And if the Islanders are going to have any chance of getting back into the playoff race, or even next year bouncing back and playing better, that confidence, that hustle, that urgency has to return to this team, because if it doesn't, you're not going to win consistently in the National Hockey League. All right, we have got a lot to get to on today's show. Islanders, Red Wings tonight in Detroit. That is a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. Don't forget, you could hear every minute of that game with the Islanders' hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just go to the SXM app and do a search for Islanders. We will have a full preview of that game, plus our Islanders' birthday of the day. All that still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So, Islanders, Red Wings in the Motor City tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And again, you could hear every minute of this game with the Islanders' hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Go to the SXM app and do a search for Islanders. This may be the biggest game of the year to date for the New York Islanders. Here, if you look at the standings, the Red Wings are one of the teams they need to catch. Detroit has 76 points right now on the season, and the New York Islanders are behind them with 73. You lose this game in regulation, it gets really hard to catch Detroit. You win this game in regulation, and you are right on their tail. This game is vital. Now, knowing the Islanders, win or lose, this game will go to overtime or a shootout. But let's put that aside right now and talk about getting the win tonight. Detroit, their losing streak is over. They have now won 2 of their last 3. They had the dramatic comeback win against Columbus on Tuesday. But they are far from a confident team right now. Offensively, they are getting it done. 6th in the league. Defensively, that's where they've struggled. 25th in the league in goals against. Special teams have been above average, 10th in the league on the power play, 23.2% conversion rate, 13th on the penalty kill, 80.2% success rate. The leading scorer right now, well, Dylan Larkin with 26 goals, Lucas Raymond with 59 points, Alex DeBrincat, a name Islander fans know well, 55 points, 23 goals. And, you know, injuries have played a part in their struggles. Goalie Villiuso out, Dylan Larkin out, Jake Wallman day to day. So that has been a factor. Right now, their goalies, Alex Lyon and James Reimer. Lyon, 18, 15, and 2 on the year, a 3.10 goals against, 903 save percentage. Reimer, 8, 7, and 2, 298 goals against, 907 save percentage. So Reimer has been slightly better statistically. Now, in their last game against Columbus, it was Reimer in goal. So it is likely that we see Lyon, but again, not sure which way they're going to go when all is said and done. Looking at the line combinations for the Detroit Red Wings, Austin Czarnik centers DeBrincat and Patrick Kane on the top line. JT Comfort, David Perron, and Lucas Raymond are the second line. Third line from left to right, Michael Rasmussen, Andrew Kopp, and Christian Fischer. And on the fourth line, Joe Veleno is the center, Robbie Fabry and Daniel Sprong are on either side of him. Ben Sherrod and Moritz Seider make a very talented top pair defense group. Simon Edvinson and Jeff Petrie are the middle pair, and Ali Mata and Shane Gostisbehere are the third pair. As I mentioned, the goalies, Alex Lyon and James Reimer. On the power play, the two guys who get the goals, Larkin and DeBrincat, and their big setup man, Gostisbehere, with 23 power play assists. Those are the guys you really have to look at, and beware, Detroit does have 7 shorthanded goals on the season, so they are dangerous when they are at a disadvantage. This is a must-win for the Islanders if they hope to make the playoffs, and they've got to preferably do it in regulation. Not easy to win in Detroit, but the Islanders have to bring their A game, and they have to bring that enthusiasm as well. By the way, this is the third and final meeting. Detroit won the first meeting on the island in overtime, 4-3. The Islanders won the last meeting on February 29th in Detroit, 5-3. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And this is a defenseman who played with the Islanders for the 2006-2007 season. Well, we're a day early, but Saturday rather, will be the 47th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Tom Poti. Poti, a native of Worcester, Mass., drafted in the third round by the Oilers back in 1996. That's when he made his NHL debut after 2 years at BU. Played for the Oilers for 3 years and parts of a fourth before being dealt to the New York Rangers. Played with the Rangers through 05-06 and then signed with the Islanders for the 06-07 season. Played 78 games with the Isles, 6 goals, 44 points, and had 3 assists in 5 playoff games that year for the Isles. Then went on to finish his career with the Capitals, where he spent 5 seasons before hanging up his skates after the 2012-2013 season. 824 career NHL games, 69 goals, 327 points, and 588 penalty minutes. Add 2 goals, 19 points in 51 playoff games for Tom Poti. Poti, basically more of an offensive-minded defenseman and a very solid player on the Islanders that one season he was here. One of his best games as an Islander, October 21st, 2006 at the Old Barn, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Islanders hosting the Carolina Hurricanes. John Graham, the goalie for Carolina. Rick DiPietro, DP, in goal for the Isles. And in the second period, Pody sets up Mike York with a goal that made it 2-0 Islanders. Alexei Yashin had the other assist, but then 3 unanswered goals in the third period by Carolina put them up 3-2 before the Islanders' power play went to work. Tom Pody again assisting, this time on a goal by Mike Sillinger. Again, Alexei Yashin, the other helper. That tied the game at 3-3 with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. And in overtime, on the power play, just 23 seconds into OT, the game-winning goal. Tom Pody from Alexei Yashin and Miro Shatan. Islanders win it in OT by a final score of 4-3 for Tom Pody, a goal, 2 assists. He scored on his only shot on goal, and yeah, he had the game winner after playing 25 minutes and 23 seconds. So Tom Pody, who will turn 47 on March 22nd, he is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we'll have our key takeaways from this game against the Detroit Red Wings. Plus, we will preview this weekend's action, both Saturday and Sunday games, Saturday against Winnipeg, Sunday against New Jersey. So we will bring you that preview on tomorrow's show. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.